Obviously, new school year starts tomorrow. What are you guys doing to prepare, and what are your goals for this year?
We've been preparing really before last school year ended. It takes a long time, and then not only that, but then just filling positions, seeing who's going to return, and filling new positions, doing a lot of professional learning, professional development over the summer months with our teachers and our administrative staff. It is making sure we had an adoption this year for financial literacy and American history, meaning that we had to change our instructional materials for those subjects. And that's a very long process, but then teachers have got to get those materials, get accustomed to them, so that when they get in the classroom tomorrow, they know how to use them. Goals for next year is to continue to ensure that the students that we serve are receiving that world-class education that we talk about every day. It's hard work, particularly with the challenges that we face, both internal and external, but it's a great district. We're doing great things, and really excited for the opportunities that our kids have and our families have.
Sure. We've been hearing a lot really across the state about teacher shortages. Mm-hmm. What's happening in Pasco County, and have you found any kind of incentives to bring teachers to your district?
Well, yes, we still have a teacher shortage, but we're not in the same place we found ourselves a year ago this time. Our voters were incredibly gracious last fall in approving a millage referendum that the district placed on the ballot to support teacher salaries, employee salaries, with the exception of administrative staff. Administrative staff doesn't get pay increases based on the millage election. So this will be the first year that we will be assessing the 1 mil of additional tax to augment salaries for teachers. That's a game changer for us. Pasco was really the last district in the Tampa Bay area that did not have that additional millage. And so we had teachers as close as we are to Hillsborough. They would just flee Hillsborough or flee Pasco and go to Hillsborough. And it was causing us a lot of heartburn and for sizable amounts of money. So now what we've been able to do is we've been able to meet, or I say slightly exceed, Hillsborough County. We're competitive now. That's huge for us. And that's the reason we're seeing our teacher vacancies not as high as they were last year. Teachers coming into the district. Pasco's a great district to work for. We're a large district, but we're still small enough that we still have that small, what I call family feel. Mm-hmm. And I think teachers appreciate that. So we're in a pretty good place.
Do you know the number of teachers you still need?
Last time I heard, I'm trying to remember what the number was, but I want to say it was a little less than 200, which is, when I first became superintendent, we had almost 500 teacher vacancies. And when I walked in and saw that, I'm going, first off, you got to be kidding me. How do you operate? This is 500 classrooms that go without a teacher. And over the years, we whittled that down to about 60, and then COVID hit. Mm. And then that was just disastrous for any school district. And Pasco was not immune to it. We had teachers that did not want to go through that. We had teachers that went through it and had enough, and they left. And we're still recovering, but we are at least heading in the right direction when it comes to filling vacancies.
Yeah, the virtual classroom was tough, I think, for everybody. What about bus driver shortages? Do you face what other counties are facing?
Yes, in the sense that we do have some shortages. Again, we've been able to help augment some of the salaries of our bus drivers and our relief drivers and bus assistants. And we've seen an uptick in drivers. And so we'll be starting the year about 30 drivers short, which is pretty good. We've reduced routes. At one point we had over 400 routes. Now we're down to about 250 routes, which means fewer routes but more kids on a bus, because you need fewer drivers to run that many routes. On top of that, we mid-year last year, I think it was, we went to a fourth bell tier. I did not want to do that. We basically had high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools. And what we did is we had to add a fourth tier because we didn't have enough drivers to get them all of our students picked up on those 3 tiers. So we had to expand the amount of time, which meant kids were being picked up late oftentimes after 10 o'clock in the morning, and not getting delivered until after 5 o'clock in the evening. It was disastrous.
So you took that back?
No, we still have the 4 tiers.
You still have it?
We still have the 4 tiers. We have over time made adjustments so that we're not getting kids picked up as early and delivered as late. We've made some adjustments on the front end of that. We've actually started school a little bit earlier. And now there's a law in Florida that now is going to turn all that upside down in a couple of years when they tell us that we've got to can't get high schoolers to school until 8:30 and middle schoolers at 8. So something's got to give, and my guess is that or elementary schools are going to start before 8 o'clock.
Right, right. I'm on the mental health beat, so my focus a lot is on the mental well-being of especially our kids.
Absolutely.
And I wondered what Pasco is doing in regards to a mental health program, if you will, anti-bullying with social media impacting so many kids, you know, really from elementary school all the way to high school. Do you have a plan in place for those kids who are struggling?
We do, and I'm so very proud of our mental health team. You know, before Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, February of 18, mental health was not one of those things that we spent a great deal of time on. We just didn't. And one of the positive things that came out of that is the renewed focus on student mental health, and I like to even include staff mental health. When I became superintendent, I really wanted to get student voice, and I wanted to find out what students were thinking. We started this program, and it was a great program where we brought kids together from all of our high schools and middle schools. And we actually got into 5th grade, and it was an opportunity for us to hear students. This was back in 12, 13. And we're actually bringing that back. It was kind of been on hiatus because of COVID and all the other challenges we've had to overcome over the last over a year or so. So we are back in the business of meeting back with students. I'm very proud of our district staff. We have gotten, I think, about 86% of our staff to complete the Youth Mental Health First Aid course. That's out of 11,000 folks. That was a gargantuan undertaking. The state says that we needed to have at least 80% and 100% of certain job classes, and it was daunting, but we did it. And I think it's just important for our faculty and staff and superintendent to know where kids are. I've spoken to our food nutrition folks, I've spoken to our transportation folks, and just talked to student service, our student services staff yesterday. And I told them, I said, kids come into schools with a lot of baggage. And it may be that they've gotten up in the dark because they have no power in the house. They may have mom and dad are going through a divorce. A grandparent has died. There's financial issues. There's no food in the house. All these issues. And then we expect kids to come to school and behave and learn. And it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. And I believe that over time, and things don't happen overnight, but over time what we found is that our faculty and staff and district staff as a whole has become a lot more attuned to kids outside of the academic piece, where they are, who they are, and why they're behaving the way they are. We are, I like to say, pretty sensitive to kids, that if we see something that's not right, we have systems in place, processes in place, that we can at least have a conversation with the student. We've got to be very careful, though, under the Parents' Bill of Rights, that we don't have conversations that parents would object to. That in and of itself has made it more difficult. But we manage, and just really proud of the efforts that we've made in Pasco.
That's great. And Allison and I actually have done the story on the Youth Mental Health First Aid course, and it's really fantastic.
It is.
It's really a wonderful program. And it allows the teachers to look outside of just what they're teaching and finding out what's going on with these kids and having the guts really to say, are you okay?
That's
Which,
right.
Back in the day was not their job, but now it is.
Well, and I don't ever want us to lose the fact that although we have these laws that kind of constrict us on conversations we can have with kids, we're still humans. And and there's still, and particularly with kids, because kids oftentimes don't know how to deal with the stresses of life. And I am convinced that kids are under a great deal of stress today. Academic stress to perform, and then just the social stress, being able to fit in, the whole boyfriend-girlfriend thing, the relationships with each other. And we've got to take cues from that. And I think oftentimes they just want somebody to talk to. And I don't want us to ever be afraid to talk to students and find out where they are. If we really find out that something is really troubling a student, we will certainly have a conversation with the parent. I mean, we're not the parents. We understand that. But oftentimes kids will not talk to parents. They will talk to a teacher or another staff member at a school. And we just want to make sure they get the supports they need to be successful.
Right. And the social media aspect of what these kids face nowadays is real. And Allison and I have done several stories about especially middle school, high school age of the bullying that goes on online. And in fact, we covered a story Saturday, which was almost the year anniversary of a 16-year-old who died by suicide due to bullying online. And so I wonder, does Pasco have any kind of programs in place when a child is being bullied, how you might handle it in this day and age where sometimes these kids think that the only way to fix it is to die by suicide, which certainly isn't the answer.
That is not the answer. And I think it just goes to demonstrate where some of these kids are. We do have processes in place. We have programs in place to support students. Certainly the Hope Scholarship is out there for families that feel that their child has been bullied, they want to change of placement, they get that scholarship. I guess I'm kind of Pollyanna in some of my thinking sometimes, because I like to think that we can resolve some of those issues at the school level without disrupting a family, whether it's the bullyee or the bullier, and having them move schools. That to me is not the answer. The answer is let's problem solve around this and let's figure out what the issues are. Sometimes we have to separate students. I mean, we physically have to separate students throughout the course of the day, throughout the course of the year. And if that's what it takes until they can get a little more mature, then that's okay. But we will make those accommodations. I think that that's one of the reasons why I have taken the approach I have with my cell phone policy this coming year. We've kind of cracked down on cell phone usage in our schools starting tomorrow. And Wendy, I am convinced, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that kids are absolutely addicted to cell phones. They are addicted to these things. And they're a valuable tool. And adults are no different. Let me just add, adults generally are no different.
Indeed.
But I think that what we found was three things, and there were three things that drove my decision to look at cell phones in our schools. One was school safety. We continue to have kids that are using devices during school to either phone in threats or post threats on social media. And then that impacts learning throughout the day. It impacts, moms and dads. They want to make sure their kids are safe in our schools. The second piece was the social media piece, the mental health piece. What are cell phones doing to our kids? You have kids, I remember flying back from Boston, Massachusetts. My wife and I were flying back from a trip, and we were on the plane with a bunch of kids. I know they were kids, I know what kids look like. I can tell they were high school kids coming back from a trip. I happened to sit next to two girls on the plane, high school girls, and neither one of them talked the whole time to each other. They were on their phones the whole time. And that's for some reason that just stuck with me. But these kids are so glued to these things. And then you start talking about the mental health aspects of this. You have self-esteem issues with young girls, primarily young girls. You have people that will say things on social media that they would, well, maybe they would, but I would like to think that they would never say to somebody's face. And then I read that and I'm thinking that I'm ugly, I'm fat, I don't have the same things that my friends have. I'm worthless. And I think that this just this starts to affect kids. And so we knew we had to do something about it. So we've cracked down on cell phones a little bit. And then the third thing, obviously, with my cell phone was academic, lost instructional time. Had kids, I was walking through classrooms and finding kids on phones, not paying attention to the teachers. And then in the year, when the test scores come out, we're all bemoaning the fact, like, we can't understand this. Yeah. What's wrong? Well, I'll tell you what's wrong. They're not learning. They're not learning. And I think there's a time and a place for cell phones. I do. But not in a classroom. Not in a classroom. It's going to be a hard adjustment starting tomorrow for some people. And we've been communicating this since June. And we have some parents that are not happy with me. But I don't care. I don't care. I want the very best for the kids. I want their kids to be able to learn. And I want their kids to stay safe. That's why I'm doing it.
So the new law in your schools is that kids they can have it, but they can't turn it on. What's the
different things. First off, I just have to be completely candid. I was going to take a scorched earth approach. I mean, I was going to say no cell phones at all. You can bring them to school, but they're going to be in your backpack. From the time you step foot on campus to the time that you step foot off the campus, no cell phones. And then my staff got to me, and principals got to me, and it was enforcement issues, and it was just like, what's the reality of what the impact is when I do this? And I listened to them. And so I backed off. So what we've done is we've said in elementary school, no cell phones out at any point of the day. You can bring it, you can keep it on silent, so mama can track my friends, they know where you are. It's fine, keep mama happy. But after school, you can get it back out, but not during the day. On middle school, what we agreed to was that no school or phones out during the day, no phones in the classroom, you can have them out at lunch. That's kind of a compromise. Okay, fine. In high school, we said absolutely no phones in the classroom. You can have them out at lunch, and you can have them out at passing, but that's it. So I'm really actually questioning myself as what have I accomplished? Because if kids are calling threats, they can do it at passing or at lunch. If kids want to post hateful things out to social media, they can do it at lunch or at passing. Don't be surprised if you see in Pasco going into next school year that we're going to have an all-out ban on cell phones. Orange County, the Orange County School District, they did an all-out complete ban on cell phones. I think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. And we've done stories that it's not just what you're talking about, which is the hateful remarks or the threats, but the algorithms on these social media apps really do keep them addicted. It's not like a mistake that they can't put it down. You know, whether it's Meta or, Snapchat, whatever, any of them, they all have these algorithms that keep these kids on it. So I applaud you, because I know that's not an easy decision to put any kind of restriction.
Well, I think that this year's restrictions are a good intermediate step. I'm not happy where we landed. So I think we're going to make some further adjustments going into the following school year.
Right. Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much.
I wish you the best of luck tomorrow and, of course, through the new school year.
Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate you.
Thank you for coming in and
Absolutely.
talking to us.
Thank you.